So I'm only going to do the highlighted parts that are going to be important to us. The key issue to address for our first exercise is going to deal with how do we improve our response rate? How do we establish trust? Most important, though, is how do we choose our research project? So I kind of a little bit ahead of myself. So what is an appropriate research project that we're going to choose, and are we going to take a deductive or inductive approach, and then how are we going to get people to participate in our project? What's the biggest concern that respondents have in terms of participating in a survey? What is the reason people are going to say to you, yes, I'm going to do it, or no, I'm not going to do your survey? Okay, so making sure that their participation is not known. Right? Confidentiality, anonymity, what else? Okay, but they've got to know what it is first to know if they're interested. That's part of our job. In fact, that's going to be part of your first research activity today in the activity 1 is to be able to clearly express to a non-academic audience through the title of your project what it is all about. And I'll show you how we've learned to convey this information over time. So you've missed one other key issue in terms of privacy. What is the biggest fear of anybody who participates in a survey? What is the major obstacle that we have to overcome? Well, depending on the survey. Okay, time, right? I told you these surveys that I was told nobody would ever complete have at least 100 questions. Our time is valuable. How do we convey to our respondents in a seemingly asymmetrical relationship? I want your information. What's in it for me? That's a dilemma that we have in conducting this research. I want you to answer 120 questions. Why should I spend 20 minutes answering your questionnaire? And if I do, how are you going to persuade me that my information is not going to be seen by anyone else? Now, we've seen from Facebook, I'm sure you've heard these stories of Cambridge Analytics, etc., that are hiding. They're basically setting up networks of data collection as a ruse of what it's really being used for. Is it possible that somebody could pretend to be an academic to collect information with commercial value and then sell it? Is that possible? How would you know on the internet anymore? How do you trust and believe anyone? As all experienced researchers know, we have a delicate balance between the resources we have and the objectives that we seek to achieve. If I had a $3 million grant from the ministry, I would be able to approach this research project differently. I would be able to hire people and monitor much more rigorously who's conducting the survey. I'd be able to monitor and establish quotas of specific groups, men versus women, the number of people in the city versus the countryside, educational levels, have them find out and pay people to mobilize support, etc. for the questionnaire. When we don't have those resources, we have to become really prudent and clever about how to achieve the same results. So on the internet, nobody knows who we are. You can say whoever you are, and how do you prove it? Which is a dilemma that I found out made a very big difference when I can have people verify the project to make sure that their confidentiality is assured. So the first step in terms of being able to establish a relationship on the internet is when you've picked your topic, you're going to have to be able to express it to the respondent that it's a value to them as well as it's a value to you. And how do you do that? So number one, we have to accept the possibility that somebody who has no information whatsoever about your survey may not believe that it's credible. How do you associate your project with credible means of verification? That becomes the real dilemma. I mean, how many of you do not get a request to do a survey on the internet? Everybody gets it, right? Whether it's within your institution, the graduate students, friends, marketing surveys, it's ubiquitous now in the internet that you get spam mail to do a survey and what we call interview fatigue. We get fatigued just opening an email asking us for conducting participating in a survey, much less actually doing it. Do you know that in the West it's actually a full-time job to be a professional respondent? Does anyone know this? You can sign up for all these different marketing companies and you establish a profile of who you are, your gender, your age, your educational background, your geographic location, your political orientations. Literally, you could have a full profile, and every other day you could get a paid invitation to participate in a survey. The information is valuable, and it's becoming increasingly important. Yeah.
I suppose that they are volunteers, so or paid for them.
Well, but everybody's doing the surveys.
Yeah. When you come survey for me, I just drop it because if I am interested to response, I will respond for it. If I am interested about the questionnaire itself, but if it's not, I will not have to spend my time on it. So if you wait, this is another story. So everybody will try to convince himself to answer this questionnaire because they're gonna to have some money or profit. So what you are going to do in your companies in the United States?
Remember, this is a reciprocal relationship. And you raised a really important point. If you're interested, you said you would do it.
Yeah, I'll do it.
That the first step is to actually, how do I attract your interest?
Yes.
And
if it's related to my area, my education, my culture, so on, I can respond directly.
Yeah.
But if not, how you convince me to share?
exactly, that's a challenge. That's what we call interview.
If you win, this is another story.
Yeah. And what's the selection biases in that process? Did you have a question?
So they show you, for example, there is a pool, they will show you the result of the pool for, the instant time that you finished your survey.
Yep. And that's really an important part of the process, is if we're not paying people to participate in the survey, how do we show them that we appreciate their participation? And one of the ways that we do it is either in an altruistic way. We say this is why this is an important survey, but number one, we've got to make sure, given limited ability to get someone's attention, the title of the survey is going to be critical. The next step of it is the brief explanation of the survey is going to be essential to continue that interest. And then you can appeal to their altruism about the importance of the survey. You know, not necessarily that if you don't finish the survey, you're not going to get tenure and you can't support your mother, but more or less of why your survey is going to be significant and the ability to offer the final results to be read to those respondents. And this has made a huge difference in our response rate. Of course, I've been doing this for, gosh, over 30 years, so I've seen this evolve over time. What's unique is the medium of interaction in the internet where everybody is faced with multiple requests to do what we want them to do. How do we distinguish ourselves from this forest of requests of participating in our survey? Okay. So let me show you some of the things that we've done. A couple of things. Number one, you can see these surveys are both in Arabic and in English, right? One of the biggest surprises for me was, why would people do the survey in English? Why are you coming here to listen to the workshop in English if Arabic is your native language? So the first thing is to make it as easy as possible for your target population to participate in your survey. This is the Arabic version, then further down is the English version. What's the challenge of offering your survey in multiple languages? What is it you have to be most concerned about? So I'm giving you an opportunity. If you were going to do it only in English and you said, no, my English isn't good enough, so now I'm saying it's in Arabic, what's the methodological issue I have to be concerned about? Okay, and why would that be a problem?
Keeping it bilingual. Bilingual, making it bilingual.
Making it bilingual, but it's not as easy as it sounds. Just to give you an idea, in general, the three surveys that I've done, the measurement instruments that need to be revised and recalibrated, I've revised those questionnaires, I would say, at least 60 times to get a measurement instrument that's reliable, that's going to be consistent and accurate. And the essential part is, of course, doing a pilot, making sure that you're pre-testing your questions. And so one of the first things that I had to do with a translator, and I made sure it was a native Saudi, not another Arabic-speaking national. It has to be, because the target population of our survey is 19 to 29-year-old Saudis. And so I sat down and I said, show me the questions where the translation into Arabic isn't clear. In other words, there isn't a specific word in Arabic for that specific word in English. You had to describe it in Arabic rather than there was a word specific to it in Arabic. And so we had to identify those questions that we knew could be a problem. So right off the bat, we have a measurement issue. We had to test that with other native speakers and work many different iterations to get it right. The other issue is sequence. How you order your questions is going to affect the outcome of the data that you collect. There's a real science and an art to developing a sophisticated scientific measurement instrument, especially if you're asking for personal and private confidential information. You need to get your respondent, who has already decided, one step in, that they're going to consider your questionnaire. They read the title, they read the description. Sounds like a lot of questions. I'll give it a try. That doesn't mean they're going to complete it, right? That's why you got to do a pilot to test your questionnaire, because you want to start from general information, the least threatening information. You want to get your respondent invested to complete the project. You want to make sure you're more than halfway into the survey before you ask a question where somebody starts going, whoa, I don't know. Some people will start off early in the questionnaire and people will stop and they won't complete it after question 8 or 9 because they wanted to keep the questionnaire short and they hadn't established the rapport yet with the respondent. So in this case, multiple languages. I think we've got 4 or 5 languages in the different countries we're doing the comparative project on. Notice that the data is collected separately in Arabic and in English. What does that mean in terms of our eventual analysis of the data? We can analyze it, and SurveyMonkey gives us that functionality to do cross-tabulation, specify variables, etc. And we'll talk about the distinction between descriptive statistics and doing more causal models later, or more multivariate models as well. But when you actually get to this point, you can download the individual data from the surveys, download it into the software that you're going to use. I use SPSS, and in that format you merge the 2 data files. So that's how we get a unified data set, is when the survey is completed, the functionality says, where do you want to download your data? Now, personally, I've tried to develop the education in our college is to have students learn Excel. Does everyone have your students learn Excel in some form or another? Is that a normal expectation at King Faisal? And the number one predictor that we've found in terms of getting student jobs, and of course we have an advantage because we're near Aramco, but if a student speaks English and is proficient in Excel, they'll get a job. Just no doubt about it. And so we sequentially try to get them to learn Excel with different applications and different courses, so that by the time they're seniors and they take my research class, the objective is they'll be able to take this survey data, download it into Excel, and even if they don't have higher level statistical background, they could do some basic distributional analysis of frequencies. So the ideal is that this is a platform of collecting data is going to end up leading to the analytical functionality. So in terms of balancing the classroom applications and your own professional objectives, just wanted to emphasize the students that have utilized this technology, have applied it and integrated it with their proficiency in Excel, that have excelled in the sense of doing a serious research project. These students have gotten very, very good jobs. And it really becomes a model for showing other students why we are trying to develop these types of skills and with tangible rewards with their peers to see that the results definitely merit the work that's been invested. Oh no. So understanding the functionalities of, first, the process of collecting our data through SurveyMonkey. Here we have the opportunity and the real challenge. If you're only going to be doing it in one language, it's obviously pretty easy. Does anyone have a guess? And this is pretty consistent over the 3 surveys that we've done. And those 3 surveys are like almost 10,000 completed surveys. What percentage do you think have been conducted in English? And these are completed surveys. What percentage do you think of the nearly 10,000 surveys have been finished? What percentage English?
50-50
Huh?
50-50
Well, these are national surveys. All Saudi Arabia, yeah. Only Saudis. 20%? Huh?
60%.
Okay, it's about a fourth. I was expecting more, about 10%. So that kind of surprised me, which raises another question. What's the difference between somebody who answers the survey in English and somebody who answers the survey in Arabic? Yeah.
I have a question about using SurveyMonkey for creating a questionnaire. Is it suitable for open-end question?
Well, we'll get to that too. Absolutely. And in fact, open-ended questions are integral to the survey process. And it's also a way of empowering your respondent and respecting them to say that we value your information in an unstructured format. And in fact, I would highly recommend that at each section, at the end of each segment of your questionnaire, you have an open-ended question. And it also affords you the opportunity that if you're not interested in doing more quantitative research, that you could use this as a data collection vehicle simply to collect narrative comments. And I'll talk about some of the most important and illuminating narrative comments that I've received in open-ended questions later in the discussion. So yes, open-ended questions, essential. In my case, it's difficult because I have to have somebody translate the Arabic versions, and that's when you have a research assistant for those help, hopefully. So merging the data sets becomes very important, and that's the final part of the process in terms of creating your data set. Okay, so we got how much time for our break? Okay, 5 minutes, and we're going to break into our small groups. So notice this will tell me how many questions? 99. How many respondents? Got 828. Notice here, this is going to be my most recent survey, so I'll show you some of the most recent advances in terms of encouraging response rates. Notice the title, provocative, Love, Life, and Marriage in Modern Saudi Arabia, Clash of Tradition and Globalization, conveying that we're looking at social change. People want to know what that means. They're curious about the distinction between tradition and globalization and what its outcomes are. And how do we learn more about that? We go to, notice the top part here. We have our summary. Our survey design, which we're going to go to next, is where you're actually uploading your survey. Very easy. You just copy it, put it in the upload, and you can actually have an option where you can email it to colleagues and friends for them to comment on it, so that they can review the survey without actually taking the survey and having test cases that you need to delete, and then they can send their comments on specific questions. So let me show you, and then take our break, about some of the ways that we have attempted to improve the response rate.